Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. I'm your host, Justin Crosley, hanging out in the studio today once again with Oakland United Beerworks. I'm excited to try their beer. I've got some in my glass already, so we're going to do that. Before getting to our guests, of course, thank you to our sponsor, More Beer. You can go to morebeer.com and check out everything you need for home brewing and pro brewing, by the way. You can still get your Christmas shopping done over there. Go to morebeer.com and check them out on YouTube. Go to their More Beer YouTube page. They do Free Beer Friday, where they give away a bunch of cool stuff every Friday. I think right now they're giving away a Brewzilla, so a all-in-one brewing machine that's pretty damn cool. I kind of want one myself. So check it out. Go to morebeer.com and thank them for sponsoring this show and every show. They've been doing it since 2005. In fact, I was thinking about this today, and I'm going to do our Brewing Network anniversary party again this coming June because the Homebrew Conference is back in San Diego. And it made me count the years that I've been doing this ridiculous show. It will be our 18th anniversary, which, if that doesn't make a person feel old that they've been doing one thing for... I don't think I've ever done anything else in my life for 18 years before this show. So that'll be exciting. I'll give you information on that party as soon as I have that. Also, hey, thanks to all of our sponsors, including the 21st Amendment, Beersmith, Williams Brewing. Support our sponsors, and you can support the show in so many easy ways. For example, while you're doing your holiday shopping, click the Amazon link on our homepage, and then just go on about your business. I don't spy on you and see what you're buying or anything like that. But if you click that link, it helps out the Brewing Network. It's just a great way to help us. And then, of course, you could always donate by hitting the donate button. And so many of you have been doing that for 18 years, and it's probably the primary reason that we're still here. So thanks for doing that, and thanks for all your support. Those are the easy ways to do things. You can send information to me to feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com if you want to be heard on the show, or if you just have, comments, criticism. I like it all. Just send it to feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com. All right, let's dive into things. Like I said, I've got Oakland United Beerworks with us today, and I've got co-owner Chris Ritter is in the studio. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on 18 years.
Thanks, man.
Your program's still too young to drink, but congratulations.
Yeah, that's true. We can go to war, though.
Yeah, that's true. You can fight, but you can't, and you buy cigarettes, but you can't drink.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think you can buy cigarettes anymore.
Is that right?
No, that's probably true, too.
All right. Well, that's actually good.
I think we voted against that.
That's actually good. All right. Well, you can fight, but you still can't drink.
And then we've also got assistant brewer. Is that or just brewer?
Assistant brewer.
Okay,
There's
cool.
only two of us, so however you want to look at it.
And I should have asked pronunciation, but I'm going to take a stab. But it's Stephen Ruddy?
Ruddy.
It is Ruddy. It's simple. It's Ruddy.
Very simple.
Stephen Ruddy, the brewer at Oakland United Beerworks, is with us today, too, to help us talk about beer. So let's dive right into things, guys. How long has Oakland United been Oakland United?
Well, Oakland United, as being Oakland United, is for about 5 years, but we trace our history back to Linden Street Brewery, so back to 2009.
Yeah. Okay.
And as you guys know, or many people know, Adam Lamoureux, who was one of our partners, came up with the vision of really getting production brewery started in Oakland. Oakland has this history of brewing, and a lot of people don't realize it, but at one point it was referred to as the Milwaukee of the West.
Oh, yeah.
And it had one of those, the guys who worked the dock, and I'm sorry, it was guys at that time. The guys who worked the dock would go off, and they had great places to have beer. And unfortunately, in 1959, the last production brewery closed. So Adam opened up Linden Street Brewing in 2009, and that was owned by three families: Adam's family, the Lamoureux, my family, the Ritters, and John Carney. And several years ago, we kind of split up. Adam stayed with James Seaboot, who's the Michelin-starred restaurateur, to have the dock, and John and I went off, and it's a long story, but John and I went off and started Oakland United.
Okay.
So we went off then.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I remember the early Linden Street days, and I do remember that story. It's pretty fascinating that a city the size of Oakland had such a drought of breweries for that long. So that's great. Do you know how many Oakland breweries there are now, offhand?
I don't, but I will tell you that I'm very proud of the fact that we were the first production brewer. I mean, you had like some of the guys who were brewing and then selling on premise, but off premise selling to restaurants, we were the first.
Okay.
And it was really an honor to be able to bring that kind of back to to Oakland, and now to see in Jack London Square where we are, there are at least 4 or 5 breweries, Original Pattern and Buck Wild and various others. So it's just delightful to see that it is becoming a brewing city again.
Yeah, what a great area.
Yeah.
And then speaking of Jack London, just because I'm a baseball fan and I'm curious,
right?
I mean, you have to be hoping for that stadium, right? It's going to be a knockout thing to happen to you.
Yeah. I mean, we think we all would love to see that. Stephen and I were canning today. We were
just talking about this morning.
Okay, good. I'm glad you don't mind the question.
No. We're very pro the A's.
Yeah, and
heck yeah.
Yeah, we have a big A's banner out in front of our brewery. We're a huge fan.
Nice.
And we're hoping it'll come. And I'll tell you what, if it doesn't, we're all going to be heartbroken.
Yeah. Well, and also, if you're those of you listeners who aren't baseball fans, my listeners have had to increasingly listen to me talk about baseball over the last couple of years. The pandemic really got me even more into it than ever, and it's just like I'm about to change us to the Baseball Network or something, although that's probably trademark. But anyhow, if you're not a baseball fan or from the Bay Area, the Oakland A's are the last professional sports team left in Oakland, and they've been there since the early 60s.
Yeah.
And their current owner, who, he's not the best owner on the planet anyway, but he does have this vision to open a waterfront park, basically right near Jack London Square.
Right.
And Oakland is hemming and hawing. It's going back and forth. And anyhow, I could really get into all those details, but the point here is Oakland really is on the precipice of losing its last professional team.
Tragedy.
And a team that has never left Oakland, by the way. So many other teams have sort of moved from city to city. Oakland, born and bred in Oakland. This will be the first time they would have moved.
Right.
And they're talking about going to Vegas with the other Oakland team that went to Vegas.
Well, this is what we were talking about this morning. Is I'm pretty sure that's a bluff. I think it's a bluff. I think that they want to stay in Oakland. I think obviously Oakland wants them to stay in Oakland, but I think they're bluffing. I think they're trying to get some money out of the city.
Yeah.
To try to get that stadium built, and I think what's going to happen is they're not going to get that money out of the city, and they're just going to have to pay for it.
And they're going to figure out how to pay for it.
and they're just going to have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I think that might happen too. I also think the city might not even call their bluff, but be a little concerned about their bluff too. Because I think that Oakland knows how devastating it would be.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, frankly, for the franchise, it's already devastating. I mean, look what the owner has done to that poor team.
Yeah.
And so the attendance at the games, I went to a Giants. I love it when the Giants play the A's. I'm a Giants fan. But I love when we do the Cross Bay, the Bay Bridge series. And the people working at the stadium, because it was a very busy day when the Giants went to Oakland. And the people working the stadium were thanking the Giants fans.
Right.
And not that they would ever be rude to us, but they were thanking us. And at first I thought they were being sarcastic, and they're just like, no, we're really happy to see people in this stadium.
Yeah.
And so a new Oakland A's stadium would do to the A's what it did for the Giants.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if you've been to the Giants stadium, what a beautiful stadium.
Yes.
It's waterfront,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They want to do something similar in Oakland.
And why not? It's on a big plot of land that they're pretending is being used, but it's really not.
Yeah.
And the other thing, so baseball aside, and so those of you listeners who hate my baseball talk, from an economic perspective and an Oakland perspective, Jack London Square and the Jack London region has been such a cool area of Oakland for decades, and nobody's really done shit with it.
Yeah.
It's been a waste of a cool area, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you can track Oakland's development by looking at Jack London Square,
Mm-hmm,
right? When, 30 years ago when my kids were little, you went to Jack London Square for one reason. They had a spaghetti factory in Jack London Square.
Yeah,
That was it,
I
right?
remember, yeah.
Yeah. And then slowly, Yoshi's went in. World Class Jazz went in, right? And they started developing, and slowly but surely you start to see Oakland's, turning around, becoming what Oakland is really capable of being.
Yeah.
And, you still see that. And I don't think we'll lose that, but just think how
Agreed.
much it'll be enhanced.
It will.
It just will be so enhanced.
It will. And obviously some major changes have to happen, both for current residents and then what will end up being new residents. But I agree with you that, like, the heart of Oakland is going to stay there, and it's just going to be enhanced.
Yeah.
Also, you can't say no to progress. You just can't.
True.
And so if you got a guy with a bunch of money willing to spend it, just let him do it.
Yeah.
Even though, like, the argument is that the guy doesn't care about baseball, it's a real estate deal. Mm-hmm. Fine. That just means he's not an idiot. Yeah. Of course it's a real estate. This is not a negative.
Yeah. Right.
Let him have his real estate deal.
Yeah, and let the rest of us have a team.
Yeah, let's face it, the waterfront property that he's going to have in Las Vegas is not going to compare to what we have in Oakland.
Thank you. Yeah.
True.
Right.
True.
There'll be no views from that park. It'll be another of these indoor parks with a roof that closes.
Right.
Listen, I'm sorry, Canadian listeners, but I've been to the Toronto Blue Jays park, and when that lid is closed, it sucks.
Yeah.
And it's a library. I swear to God, I was really, I was taken aback when I went to my first Blue Jays game because they had closed the lid, and I was yelling at the right fielder. Oh, he could hear every word I said. An enclosed baseball park is not an ideal place to be a fan. And so, stay in Oakland. Have a beautiful waterfront park, and then, I think of all of you guys who have, I don't think taking a risk is probably the right phrase, but have gotten in early, decided that you're investing in Oakland, and gone for Jack London, even though it doesn't have the foot traffic that you'd like it to. I hope that finally pays off, and you're going to have more foot traffic than you can deal with.
Yeah, we're seeing that now. And by the way, waterfront property in Las Vegas is the Bellagio. Just so
that's true. The Mirage.
Right. But anyway, we're seeing more of that. And one of the things that really came to us positively out of COVID is that we're seeing more and more people moving into Jack London Square. And, when we couldn't sell to bars and restaurants, all we could do was sell cans. And we got a lot of people that came out of the new kinds of either buildings in Oakland or in the old kind of warehouses that have been converted to incredible lofts. And it's look, Oakland has never got its full due, and it will someday. And I think it's fast approaching that. And those of us who know Oakland love Oakland, and for a good reason.
And specifically that part.
Yep.
Yeah.
I go there, for the breweries now. I'm a big Original Pattern fan, and I know those guys. But I'll also now, again, back to baseball, but sometimes if I'm just tired of Bart, I go to Oakland just so I can take the ferry. So I'll get some beer in Jack London, and then take the ferry over, and then walk to the ballpark. Like, that waterfront area is just amazing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. If I could choose to move from where I am right now, any place in the Bay, it'd be down there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And say what you want to say about Jerry Brown, but he really brought development down to Jack London. In fact, our brewery is right next door to an old warehouse that he converted to where he lived and turned into kind of a political action area, and now has converted it to a really successful help for teenage runaways, and kind of, it's called Coventry House, and it's just an amazing facility.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. See, I love to hear it. And I think that's the heart of Oakland too, and has been since the 60s. I mean, Oakland is an activist city.
Yep, true.
All right, well, let's talk about this beer in our glass while we're getting some of this history too. What am I drinking? It's your hoppy lager called... What is it? Night Heron?
This is Nelson the Night Heron.
The Night Heron, right?
Yeah, this was a little lager that we threw out a few weeks ago. I think it's a few weeks old now. And the reason we wanted to highlight this is because, number one, Nelson hops, obviously.
Love them.
Number two, going back to our Oakland conversations, the Night Heron is actually the city bird. That's our local bird of Oakland.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. We didn't realize either. And one of our warehouse guy, he actually brought it up, and then he decided to name the bird Nelson. So this is Nelson the Night Heron.
Nice.
Which I think is cool. It's a beautiful bird.
Yeah.
Big fan of birds. I like going by the lake and seeing them all.
I think we have to be truthful here.
What?
The American bird is the bald eagle, and we've got the California condor. Those people who love Oakland can really appreciate Nelson the Night Heron. I mean, Nelson is this small little heron. He's dark. He's got the black wings. He hangs out everywhere. He's everywhere in Oakland. He is, not super majestic, but he is Oakland, man.
Yeah,
he is spunky.
I think he's majestic. This is our wren, right? This is our desert bird of the lake.
I don't. You're kind of saying he's a little scrappy though. Like he knows how to get things done.
Yeah, scrappy.
We say hyphy in Oakland.
Those of you who don't know him, as soon as you see our label, you know exactly who
you'll
he
go,
is.
oh, that kind of bird.
And I want to pick up on something that Stephen said. We're called Oakland United, and one of the things we really want to do is we want to emphasize what makes Oakland unique. So we're going to have a couple beers tonight that are really Oakland historic centric, right? Or Oakland attitude centric, and Nelson the Night Heron is Oakland attitude plus. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And we're, it's a great coincidence. We also have the Nelson hops, but Nelson got his name because a bunch of grade schoolers petitioned the city council to make the night heron the official bird of Oakland.
Oh, nice.
And then they picked one and they named him Nelson, and so Nelson the Night Heron is now the official super bird of Oakland, and we've got a beer named after him.
I love it. And I like the double entendre with you guys because of the Nelson hops, but I also like choosing an Oakland image that isn't the tree.
Right.
Now, yeah. I love the tree.
Trees
it
are great.
looks so cool on everybody's logo, right? It is the coolest logo for a city. I'll give it that. But I need something different, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So tell me more about the beer. Nelson hops and what else?
That's it. So that was one of the things we wanted to highlight, is I feel like a lot of times when you're having a Nelson beer or something with a very cool new hop, your Nectarons, your what have yous, a lot of time you get this is a Nectaron beer. This is a Nelson beer with Mosaic, with Citra.
Of course.
And you got your 30 other hops that you used because you needed to fill your quota or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And I think Nelson's just a superb hop that stands on its own. Obviously we don't get a ton of it here in the States, or the ones that do are on contracts and this and that, so it's a little bit rare. But we went the extra mile and we decided, let's just dry hop it with the Nelson. Let's whirlpool it with the Nelson. Let's just go Nelson 100% across the board.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth on it, and we talked about, let's cut it with a little of this. Like, no, we're not cutting it with anything. We're just going straight Nelson.
Right.
It's Nelson the Night Heron. We can't.
No,
it's not Mosaic the Night Heron.
Yeah. And his cousin Mosaic.
Yeah, that's
But you get a very unadulterated version of what the Nelson hop can do.
You do, and so I'm only going to disagree with you on one point, and it's a compliment, that I have found from most breweries that have done 100% Nelson beer that it hasn't stood on its own well enough, and I've most often wished that they've done something else. This one's not that way. This one, the hop character of Nelson just shines through perfectly, and it's a great beer. It does not need another hop.
No, and I think the fact that it's a lager helps that.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
That's okay. Yeah, all I've had with like 100% Nelson IPAs.
Right.
And I've just gone and I love like some of the dank and the kerosene that comes off of it. But in high volumes like that, it also just rips the enamel out of you.
It's true.
So, yeah, maybe you're right. Just that it's probably a lesser dosage in a lager.
It is. It's a delicate hop. Like you said, you get those diesel notes and you get those kerosene notes and a lot of the dank that comes through. And it's, the more you put, the more you're going to get.
Yeah.
And if you have a little bit lighter of a hand and a little bit delicate of a beer, you can kind of make, that gooseberry. I don't know what a gooseberry is. I've never had one.
But you know that it's there.
But I know that people are telling me it's supposed to taste like gooseberries.
Yeah.
And I think they're there. I get berry. I really do.
They're there.
Someday you're going to have a gooseberry. You're going to say, this is a Nelson.
I really am.
Yeah, you could have it. You're like, oh, it smells like Nelson.
It smells like Nelson.
No, this is great. I could drink this all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the ABV? Do you?
4.5,
and
change.
Oh, so I really could drink it
You
all
really
day.
could drink it all day. It is the session after all, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, 5.2. I'm a liar.
What about the malt bill? Simple?
Pilsen.
Just Pilsen.
Just Pilsen. We're using we use proximity malt for pretty much all of our beers. We do throw some Admiral maltings in for wheat and for oats and stuff like that, and a couple of our more adjuncty stuff. But for the most part, this is proximity Pilsner.
Okay.
If it's not Pilsner, then it's proximity base malt, they call it.
Okay.
But I think this is the Pilsner.
I don't think I've heard of Proximity before.
They're an interesting malt house. They're a really interesting malt house. We've been using them. They're decently priced. The malt's really good. They deliver quickly. There's very little shipping charges. Like, we were really enjoying everything we get from them.
Oh, what's not to like?
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget where they ship from. I think they're shipping out of Sacramento, but they're based in Colorado, I want to say. I could be lying completely.
Nice. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your brewing history too, Stephen, because you've brewed at quite a few places now.
Yeah, I got my teeth cut at Anchor Brewing in San Francisco.
Okay.
So that's where I started out, kind of going all over the place there. It was right after college. I was home brewing. I really wanted a job in the beer industry. Went on a tour at Anchor, and I was just like, oh, so this is church. I get to go brew beer in church every day. This is fantastic. So I bugged them for a job, and then started there in 2011, 2012, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And then kind of did a lot of stuff there. So I was in packaging, I was in tours, was doing events, I did fermentation there, just kind of went all over the place.
Sure. Great place to cut your teeth, really.
It really is. And you learn both everything and nothing at the same time, which I like about Anchor, because everything is so big and everything is so production based and everything is so fragmented. So if you're doing fermentation, if you're brewing there, you don't know what's happening with the yeast. That would be my job. Yeah. So you have like a whole handoff. I think it's different now, but when I was there, it was very
It was
departmental.
Sure, it was a system that they had,
yeah, exactly.
and it worked, by the way.
Well,
so
it did.
yeah.
I mean, Fritz Maytag, like, you can't argue with his methods. They worked, and they worked for however many years. He started a whole revolution.
Sure.
Yeah,
he probably would have fired you if he argued anyway.
Oh, yeah. No. He hated me the 2 times I got to meet him.
Okay. I don't know that I've seen him like anybody, so you're probably fine.
I actually, the first time I met him, true story, is outside of Telford's cigar shop in Marin. So I was working at Anchor at the time. I had never met him before, and I was going into Telford's. We were buying pipe tobacco because I think we were going camping that weekend.
Okay.
And it was me and 3 other people from Anchor. I think we were going on like a little retreat. And so we saw him sitting outside just tooting on a cigar, and we were like, Mr. Maytag, how are you doing? He's like, how are you, boys? And we explained to him, we're actually from your brewery. And he just kind of looks at us and nods his head a little bit and goes, okay. Yeah, move on.
Next.
Right. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think he likes or dislikes anyone. He's just Fritz. He's just who he is.
People are around, and he has to tolerate it.
yeah, I think that sounds about right. How long were you there?
I was there for 3 years, 2 or 3 years.
Okay. So a good place to come out of, though, if you're going to eventually work at a production brewery.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Do you do any sort of open fermentation at Oakland United like they do?
We don't. No, we don't do anything along those lines. It would be. I mean, the next part of my journey is working in sour beer. So at some point, I'd like to get back to that. And maybe Oakland United will be the place that we get to play with that a little bit. But the open fermentation thing was super fun. Something I fell in love with.
Sure.
But yeah, we don't do anything along those lines. We're playing with just a couple of yeast strains over there. Nothing that we need to free rise, really.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have a sour program at all yet?
No.
Okay.
No, kettle sour, but
okay. Yeah. You don't consider that a full sour program?
I'm an oak snob.
Considering where you came from, right?
So after Anchor, I took a job as a brewer at the Libertine in San Luis Obispo. That was me kind of going out of my shell, trying something new.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for maybe 6 months before they tapped me to be head brewer there, and then it was just taking off and kind of rebuilding the program in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. It was really interesting. It was a lot of working with fruit, working with farmers, working with different malt houses. There was a bunch of people down there doing new stuff that we got to experiment with.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, that's why I'm not a snob. I like kettle sours, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to oak, I'm very
sure.
I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and it's okay to distinguish those two.
And that I think is the right. You distinguish them. You don't
not saying
hate
one's,
or love one or the other. Yeah, absolutely.
But I like when breweries do that. Even when my customers come in here, I can tell who I have to dumb it down for. Right? I don't mean this to be rude, but sometimes I just have to go, oh yeah, well, this one's a sour. When in my mind, well, this one's a kettle sour, so it's a little bit different than this oak sour over here or this wild fermentation over here. Mm-hmm. And there are customers I can talk to about that, right? But I think sour is fine. But I do like brewers that make a distinction.
Right. Well, it's like you look at the wine world, and you have those people who come into the tasting room, and they're you right off the bat, okay, this person's going to want this more complex, this spice note, this, and then you have the bachelorette party that comes in.
Sure.
And you go, okay, they want red.
Yeah, this one tastes like red.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's fruit in this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can tell kind of you have to dumb it down for. You have to make it kind of layman's terms for.
You do. And by the way, I don't mind either. I have fun with all of my customers. I'm not even just being politically correct here. But when we opened the Hop Grenade, I pretty much had 2 rules, and they might seem conflicting, but the first one was that we'll be all about the beer. And the second one is that we are absolutely not beer snobs.
Yeah. Yes.
If any of my staff treats any customer like, oh my God, you don't know what this is or that is, sorry, that's the end of the line for you. Yeah. We want to encourage people to try things and not make fun of people for not knowing something new.
And I think that's the rub, right? Once you get the snob portion in the way, all of a sudden you've turned somebody off. Like I've seen it happen 1,000 times where, especially for female who come to bars and they want to drink, and you go, oh, let me tailor how I'm going to speak about beer to you. And then all of a sudden, they're told, oh, you don't like this type of beer. And then the language hits and they're like, oh, I must not like that type of beer. And, that kind of thing happens. So when you start to gatekeep that kind of stuff, which a beer snob does, it kind of ruins it for everybody because, you're not making the customer more intelligent. You're not making them more educated.
Yeah.
And then when they come in, they're like, oh, I don't like hoppy beers. Like, what do you mean by that?
I'm sure you've been given false information.
13 adjectives you could use that are better than that.
But isn't that the wonderful thing about beer? That you can take, there's so many things to teach about beer. And when you take the time to teach somebody about beer, how much more they appreciate what and it doesn't even have to be something complex.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm amazed when I talk to people at the tap. I'm known as the lead schmoozer. I'm in the tap room. I talk to a lot of folks, and you explain to them, look, there's just some basics that you need to know about these things, right? There are lagers and there are ales, and let me tell you a little bit about how the history behind it. It's just so engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, it just. Not only does it make the beer better, but just people love that kind of stuff.
Sure, and it's not condescending.
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all.
And to me, the only thing that should dictate what messaging you're delivering or any sort of gatekeeping or anything like that is what you've listened to, what you've heard. So, in other words, when I say I can tell which of my customers I want to talk to about kettle sour or regular sour, it's because I've listened to them first. Just let them tell me a little bit about what they know, and then I'm like, okay, cool, let's go this direction.
It's not you giving up, it's you knowing how to communicate with that person.
Yeah. And by them giving me information. So, anyhow, love that you have that distinction. I'll be curious to watch the progress of the potentially new...
you heard it here first, folks.
How big is the brew house?
30 barrel.
30 barrel, okay. Mm-hmm. And about how much, you guys said production brewery. How many barrels a year do you think you guys are doing now?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. We're over what we were doing last year.
Yeah, I'm going to say close to 3,000.
Something like that, yeah.
That's a good amount.
And then we're just trying to keep that train moving. We have 90 barrel fermenters for a 30 barrel tank. We could be doing a lot more turns, and so we're hoping to kind of throw out into the world here.
Do you have room in the space for more fermenter?
We have room in the space to grow into as is. Maybe putting new tanks in won't be the case for us right this moment, but we do have some room to grow at this point. We also we were working with somebody who's contract brewing with us, and we just got their 2 tanks freed up. So that's already 180 barrels more that we'll be able to work with.
Got it. Well, if you need more space, you better get it before they build a ballpark.
Yeah.
Let's tell you that. That's the downside to all of that.
They'll come calling to us for that brew pub when they finally open it. Yeah.
All right, we got a lot more to talk about and a lot more beer to try. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to The Session, and we've got Oakland United Beerworks. We'll be right back. Hang in there. Welcome back to the program. Thanks for hanging out with us. You're listening to The Session, and we're still here with Oakland United Beerworks, talking beer and history and Oakland and a little baseball. Forgive me. But I got to do it. I just have to do it. Okay, now we've got a lot more to talk about, and I wanted to talk about some more of the history.
Sure.
And the history, I think, relates quite a bit to the beer that we've got in our glass right now, which... is this the one you guys just won GABF for?
We did. Thank you.
You got a silver, right?
Got a silver. Yep. Yeah.
Congratulations. That is a huge deal.
Thank you. Yeah, it really is, and it's a real tribute to the team that's working on it. And I have to tell you, it's a great way to wake up on a Saturday morning when all your friends are texting you and saying, "Hey, dude, guess what?" I don't want to say I lacked any faith in it, but I did sleep in on Saturday, and when I found out, it just was amazing.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So I've been broadcasting those awards, webcasting them, whatever, for almost as long as the Brewing Network, and it's still never lost on me how important those are and how much they mean to the brewers. It's one of my favorite things to do every year, even though now I'm sitting backstage just staring at my screen. I still, knowing you folks and seeing people come up and celebrate those wins, because it's really difficult to do. And I always, think of it like the Oscars, right? Here you are among your peers, and when you kick ass like that, it's just the coolest thing.
Well, it's a validation that you don't expect, especially in like what we consider a flagship beer. Because I think that when it comes to GABF, a lot of people do a lot of like game theory with it. They'll be like, oh, let's pack one category with some beer. I don't want to like talk too much inside baseball about how that all goes, but to just be like, you know what, we believe in this beer, we love this beer. This is one of our desert island beers as far as like the people at Oakland United, and to see the recognition that like, boom, you got a silver for this. It's like, oh, this is so validating. This is so incredible that like something that we just sit around and drink all day is like being awarded and being showered with some praise right now.
Yeah, I think the only emotion I can describe it is just joy. I mean, when we got it, it's just a sense of joy. It's something we've been brewing. We've been brewing a black lager Schwarzbier, a classic German Schwarzbier for, well, forever. I mean, we've had versions of it since the time we go back to Linden Street. And it's something we really, really believe in. I tell people as a parent, you're not supposed to have a favorite kid, but this is my favorite kid, right?
Right, yeah.
And to see other people enjoy it as much as you enjoy it is just joy. I mean, it's just an amazing feeling. And it's, as you said, validation that you're doing things right, that people are making the right decisions, that you're sticking to something that you know. And, a lot of people have no idea what a Schwarzbier is.
Sure.
And then you introduce them to it, and they just, for the first time, realize, oh, it's different than a porter. It's different from a stout. It's
very different,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But people associate the color with, certain characteristics, and to watch them learn is just an amazing process.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things I love about this beer is how full-bodied it is without being cloying or sticky sweet. And to me, a black lager, a Schwarzbier is difficult in the sense that a lot of times people dry it out too much, and then I get that kind of a chalky or even just too grainy of a note to it. Or they go the opposite, trying to give it some of the body that it needs, but then it's not dry enough, and it's just a little motor oil, too much sugar. And this one really is right where it should be. It's got enough sweetness to back it up. It's a little grainy, like it should be. Like I'm getting some of those grain notes out of there. I don't know what the chocolate malt is that you guys use, or is it a chocolate malt?
In this new iteration of it, there's just a slight amount of black patent.
Okay.
But it's, I think that a lot of people lean really heavy. It's tough, right? Because like you said, the roast quality can overtake this type of beer.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of different ways. A lot of people use a midnight wheat. They'll use a dehusked carafa, like different situations like that. And I think like a lot of people won't lean into excuse me, the caramel malts as much as they should. And I think that's where the sweetness comes in. There's quite a bit of caramel 120 in here. And then some other lower caramel malts as well. But I mean, the broadest base of it is just, again, base malt, the base malt from Proximity.
Okay.
And it's a testament to their malt as well, that grain really, really shines through on it.
It's a delicious beer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's
I never
like
tire of hearing it.
It's like your kid, It's like you have faith in your kid, and when other people see it, it's just such a warming experience.
Well, it's the kind of that desert island beer feel. It's not. This isn't. I don't think of it as the beer that's going to take over the world in any way, shape, or form. But it's definitely, if I'm reaching for something, this is the beer I reach for.
Yeah.
And it's not your bestseller.
It might be, but I don't think so.
Okay, correct. It's actually the bestseller we have is the Pilsner, but it's up there. And I think it's one of those things that we're going to continue to see people starting to really kind of go to it, because not only having the award is great, obviously, but I'm amazed when I get people who see dark beers and they just shut down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I used to tell people when I was pouring, this goes back to the days that I was pouring on Saturdays and Sundays at Linden, I just say to people, close your eyes. Drink this beer. Now open your eyes.
Yeah.
Look at the color.
Right.
All your illusions of a dark beer are blown away.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
No, and I think that's important. And to get people to open their mind like that, close their eyes, open their mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's to me, that exact experiment too is akin to people making white stouts now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, the first one I ever had was from Faction, which he still makes. Anomaly, I think it's called.
Anomaly, yeah.
He said he'd never make it again after that first one, and it was just so wildly popular, you know?
That sounds like Roger.
But anyhow, same thing. Close your eyes and drink that beer,
Yeah.
and then you're certain you're tasting a dark beer.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I love that, just messing with those perceptions.
Yeah.
But the reason I asked if it was your bestseller is I was going to say, even if it's not, or as it's not, there's still, I think, something to be proud of as it being a beer that you're known for.
Right.
Because it has so much character.
It does.
Because it's not just a hazy IPA. Because it's part of you guys. You
Right,
know?
and that fits into the idea of the Beerworks and not brewing company kind of a situation where it's like we want to experiment and do different types of beers, and we've been having like a run. Excuse me again. A run of success with our darker beers, which has been great to see.
Yeah.
Our porters are doing great. Our stouts are doing great. Our black lagers obviously doing fantastic, and so it's really cool to see that, because it means that as brewers we get to be a little bit more creative.
Sure.
We get to do a little bit more outside the box thinking rather than, well, which hop can we put in this IPA, which is great. Like, I love trying new hops, but at a certain point in time you get that kind of fatigue. Like, I want to try something different. You know, when you go to a beer bar, you want a selection. You don't want 13 IPAs on tap and one Pilsner.
Right.
Right. There absolutely is a group of people who do want that. And, you know, I drink IPAs. I'm not knocking IPAs. I love IPAs.
Yep.
I was drinking a Swami's earlier. It's
Nice, yeah.
fantastic beer. Also a Desert Island beer. But yeah, that's...
well, and we've struggled with that as a beer bar, too, to appease our standards of variety.
Right.
And then sometimes appease the standards of the public. And the public's been changing quite a bit lately, I think in a good way, where our standards are starting to more align with the public in terms of variety.
Right.
But there was a time where if we didn't have 7 or 8 IPAs on, we were the odd man out.
Yeah.
Which we dealt with sometimes just to educate the public that there's more out there. But you also watch your numbers dip a little bit, and you're like,
you got to pay the
"Shit."
electricity bill,
You're
right?
like, all right, I need 2 more IPAs stat.
Yeah. Imagine being a brewer, and that's, you know, that's your lifeblood. You have to make what the people want, and if that's all the people want, that's all you're making, and that's when you see a lot of brewers hit creative burnout, and you know, they start to kind of fudge it a little bit, and it's nice to not have that issue at Oakland United, to be able to. I think we had one of our biggest hits this year with a Baltic Porter, and it's just like that's
great.
Insane and lovely. Again, I think it's just maybe a testament to our lager yeast, but
Okay. What is your yeast? Is it a proprietary or?
We're actually using a hybrid right now. I forget the company's name off the top of my head. I'll look it up. But it's a ale lager hybrid.
Okay.
And we're using it for our West Coasts too right now, and it's coming out really nice.
You know, it's simpler just to say proprietary.
It's our proprietary yeast.
Yeah. Makes you sound good too. Yeah.
Our proprietary yeast strain from
Exactly.
Now, when you say hybrid, though, is that like a Kolsch yeast? Was that considered a hybrid yeast?
No. So it is. It's one of those newly selected yeast strains.
Okay.
That it's kind of, you know, like there's the cold IPA kind of situation going on where it's. Or I guess actually Beerdegard is probably a better way to look at it.
Okay.
Where, you know, you can kind of use whichever yeast strain, and they kind of became this little hybrid situation.
I see.
But yeah, it's working great. You know,
Can you use it in both ales and lagers?
Yes.
Is it that kind of hybrid?
Yes.
Okay,
It's that kind of hybrid. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
using it for our West Coast, but it's not a cold IPA situation. We're using it as an ale yeast. And we're using it at ale temperatures, and it's giving ale properties. It's not, it's fermenting clean.
Yeah.
But it's not fermenting lager clean.
Okay, yeah. That's so good. All right. Is this a good time to also kind of talk about the family history of the brewery?
I'd love to do that. I want to make one comment, though, because I've emphasized that we are Oakland United.
Yeah.
And we try to have some connection. It's not always every beer that we name to have some connection to Oakland. This is East Bay Nights. And for those of you who know the band Rancid.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
It is a tribute to Rancid. And so, every once in a while somebody will come in and say, is this related to the Rancid song? And it says, and I like to say it's inspired by it.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to talk about the family situation.
Yeah, and so
I'd be happy to talk about Rancid.
Well, I'm old enough that I tell dad jokes, right? And I love to tell my kids I've been following Rancid so long they were called Fresh when I started.
that's a good dad joke. I like that. Yeah.
I'm frowning right now.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I know.
So you lost your son, Andrew.
Yes,
Andrew Ritter, to ALS back in 2016. 2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was really him that started the family into the brewery, right?
That's absolutely true. Andrew, much like most of the brewers around here, started off as a home brewer. He started off when he was about 18, and he found out you could brew and not have to be 21 in order to get what you needed to brew.
Yeah.
And he turned out to be a pretty good home brewer. He went off and got a degree in Latin and ancient history. And so what do you do with a degree in Latin and ancient history? You become a brewer, right?
Yeah.
So he started off at Linden and then went to Drake's and brewed at Drake's and then went back to Linden. And unfortunately, when in about 2015, just about the time we had to make a decision whether we keep the brewery going or not, Andrew was diagnosed with ALS. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't know, that's Lou Gehrig's disease. It is an absolutely, excuse my language, fucking shitty disease. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it robs you of your ability to move any of your muscles. Your brain's still there, but you can't really move, and eventually it's an incurable disease, which is something that why we support Ales for ALS, which we'll talk about at some point.
Yeah.
But Andrew was an amazing young man, and I would not be here doing what I'm doing but for the fact that Andrew really got our whole family into brewing.
Okay, yeah.
And then when he passed, we had to make a very difficult decision. At the time, the building we were in at Linden Street was sold, and it was sold to a developer, and he basically didn't renew leases. Adam, who we worked with for a long time, decided he wanted to stick around and work, with James C. Abood on the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Andrew was dying, unfortunately, from ALS, and my wife Jill and I really had to make a hard decision. We were the majority owners. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And John Carney and John Carney's family, and I know when John hears this, he's going to hate me for saying it. He was one of the most generous people in the entire world. Basically said, we're going to keep it going, for Andrew.
Nice.
And so we moved. For those of you who are looking to start a brewery, do not name your brewery after a street, because if you have to move, you can't keep the name, right?
Fair.
So we moved. We took all of what was Linden Street with us, and we started Oakland United. And unfortunately, Andrew didn't live long enough to be able to brew or to see the brewery in its completion. Mm-hmm. But he's still with us. Mo, who's here, loves this story. When we were pouring concrete one morning, we found out that we were going to pour all this concrete for the foundation. So my son Eric, my wife, and I, and John Carney, we all appeared with a little vial of Andrew's ashes, and we put it into the funny story was we asked the guys who were pouring the concrete, what do we do with this? Do we put it into that rotating thing? And the guy said, well, you might want to do that, but we're going to an old folks home after this to pour the foundation. There's no guarantee he'll end up here. Yeah. So we ended up putting his ashes. We covered him. He's right near the mill. Oh, yeah. And he's with us. Anyone who comes to Oakland United, please, when you're sitting at the bar, take a look to the left. His picture's up on the wall, and his favorite saying was, drink beer, slay dragon. And for those of you who are there, please say a toast to Andrew.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll give a toast to Andrew right
drink
now.
Beer, slay dragon.
Drink beer, slay dragon.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful story, and if we can back up just to the disease for a moment, I learned quite a lot about it recently, and again in preparation for this show, if I'm honest. But I wanted to bring up that one of the things I learned was that anybody can get it at any time, anywhere.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why I had this preconception that it was always hereditary, or that we even know why it happens. I think because it's been around for so long, it was discovered in the 1800s, I think. Right. I think I just had these assumptions about it. And when I came to find that out, I just was really, startled in some ways and shocked, and it made it all the more tragic when this strikes families to me, because it's so out of nowhere. I mean, how old was Andrew in 20? What'd you say? 2015.
Andrew was 29 when he was first diagnosed, and then he had one of the tragedies about it is that for many people, you go very quickly from being able to be in control to having to basically be supported. So it was about 18 months before he passed.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew lived life to the full. Anyone who knows Andrew lived life to the fullest. In that 18 months, he said to all of his friends, look, I don't want to hear any bullshit about I don't have it. I don't want to hear anything about they're going to come up with a cure in the next 18 months. I'm going to go out and I'm going to live life.
Attaboy.
And so we went to Oktoberfest. We had a great time in Oktoberfest. One day he got in the car with his brother and his best friend, and the next thing we heard, they were in the bayou in Louisiana.
Wow!
So he lived a full life. But
Good.
To go back to what you said, only a fraction of it is actually familial. There are two types: familial, and then there's one where people have no idea why you get it. And the frightening thing is, it used to be a disease that primarily affected people in their 50s and 60s, right? And unfortunately, there are more and more young people that are getting affected by it. And, it's one of those things that there is a cure out there. It's fortunately, it is a disease that does not hit a lot of people. And so it doesn't have the funding in order to do a lot of the research. And that's one of the reasons that things like ALS for ALS have been so critical in helping to fund the research for finding the cure.
And I agree with you. And I think that the awareness, because what you said, because there are a few cases, because of also probably preconceptions like I had, misconceptions, there's just not enough awareness about it. So I love ALS for ALS. And by the way, I think I read that something like 90 to 95% of the cases are non-familial.
Yeah, exactly right.
So I like talking about this and these details and the awareness, because I like to not going around thinking that things can't happen to me.
Yeah.
So if 90 to 95% of cases are non-familial, let's wake up and make sure that research is happening. So specifically, ALS for ALS is just the coolest and I think great event that it's done at Faction every year, at least for the Bay Area.
Right.
But there's more than that event. There's more than just the Bay, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. There's a wonderful group out of the Boston area called ALS TDI, Therapy Development Institute, that I cannot say enough positive things about. When Andrew was diagnosed, they somehow found out. They came and rallied around our family. They gave us all the support that we needed. They were completely upfront. They didn't mince any words. They made it very clear what the chances of prognosis were. Yeah. But these guys are in Cambridge, where Harvard and various other places are, and they're developing efforts to really find a cure.
Okay.
So ALS for ALS basically is an opportunity. I don't think there's any direct connection, but there are a number of people in the brewing world who have been affected directly or indirectly by ALS. And it's an opportunity for people all over the country to get together and brew beer, and then to use a percentage of the sales from that beer to effectively help find a cure for ALS. Yeah. One of the wonderful things that happens is that ALS TDI helps provide the hops that's used for it. And so you get a lot of people who can come use the hops. You don't have to use the hops. Many of our beers recently, we've just decided we want to do our own brewing, want to use our own hops, but still support a very important, very necessary research project.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the Faction event, it's such an important event. It's such a big event now. And I think I've read that event alone over the years has raised almost over $250,000
it
for research.
Doesn't surprise me. Putting aside the seriousness of it, it's a hell of an event.
All the brewers come out to it.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't been, first of all, let's acknowledge that Faction's got the best view of any brewery in the Bay Area. It looks out, you see the city unobstructed. We just had a wonderful event recently there where the weather was fantastic. I think we must have had 30 or 40 breweries that came out. Some of them had brewed specific beers for ALS research, but all of them were contributing to the development to try to figure out how we solve this problem. And it's a great get-together. Stephen was there. Stephen saw like 50 of his old friends that he's brewed with from all over the state. And it's just it's a family get-together for a very tragic event. And that's what family's for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to be able to raise money like that. And I was always impressed at not just the number of breweries, but more so that the brewers are there. Yeah. There's fewer and fewer festivals nowadays that the brewers want to go be a part of. I'm lucky enough that our beer fest here is still one of those. And the other one I know is Ales for ALS down there. So, yeah. It's a great event.
I'll point out, I don't know what it is, but a lot of the brewers have personal connections in some way to somebody who passed or, they worked with or whatever who's had ALS. So it's a phenomenal event. Thank you, Faction. Every year, when we didn't have it from COVID, it was sorely missed.
Sure, yeah.
But, thank you, Faction.
Yeah, they brought it back this year.
Yeah, and it came back with a vengeance.
Nice.
It was great.
Very nice, very nice. Now, just to wrap up on this beer before we move to the next one, did Andrew have a hand in this recipe as well?
Way back when. It's gone through iterations, but this is one of the beers that he brewed when he was at Linden.
Okay.
It also traces back to Adam. And for those of you who know Adam talks about the first beer that he fell in love with was a dark beer.
Okay.
And so it was a beer that we brewed way back when. Some of my fondest memories is just going and getting this beer cold out of the tank and just drinking it and serving it to people at Linden. And
absolutely.
So it's been around, and as I said, it's my favorite kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around. But I
can see why.
I do think of Andrew whenever I drink it, and that makes it even more special.
Sure. Well, and keeping the brewery going, let's not gloss over that. I think even though you had a tough decision to make, and that maybe you were even nudged along by your partner to keep it going. I can't imagine that you're not thankful that happened. To keep this going.
Listen, John is a very modest man, and it's going to embarrass him by my saying this, but my wife and I were ready to throw the towel in.
Yeah.
You lose your lease because they want to sell your building, and one partner wants to go one way, which is great. I'm glad that Adam went with James and did the dock, and you're trying to. Your kid's dying. I don't mean to trivialize that. It
so
was
much happening.
Yeah, a tough decision. But I'm so proud of the fact that we hung in, and much of that is because of John's special effort. And there's not a time that I don't go to the brewery, and if you come, you'll see the portrait of Andrew up on the wall where I don't toast him, and am grateful that we're still there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, if there's anything to be grateful for, it is that.
Yeah.
And you get to carry on and leave this legacy yourself. So I'm really glad that you did too.
Yeah, I love to tell people, people inherit things from their parents. I inherited this from my son.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Well, congratulations on your success since then.
Thank you.
And that this beer is still rocking.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, we got another beer to try too. Mo, would you mind helping pour? This one is, I think it's a cryo beer, right? It's called Quintessential Cryo. You want to tell us about this one, Steve?
Yeah, don't mind the names. I think we're running out of so we're just kind of throwing stuff against the wall.
The beer world is running out.
We have one more Oakland centric beer, but we do. You're right. This one is not one of them.
We've been.
Oh, it's clear.
Look at that.
As soon as I hear cryo, for some reason, I just expect hazy, even though there's no relation particularly.
Right. No, but you're right. I would absolutely think the same thing. That's why I love the anomalous, to go back to Roger's White Stout.
Yeah.
The anomalous beers where you're expecting one thing and you get another, and it's kind of I feel like that's kind of the Oakland United way now.
And I was going to say, and that's Oakland's way, right? I think a lot of people who don't know Oakland expect one thing, and they're surprised as hell how wonderful it really is.
I was going to go back and quickly, before we talk about this beer, is talking about the Andrew Ritter beer that we did this year, and I think something that we want to continue with.
Yeah, we're doing every year.
Mike and I talked about our head brewer. Is that what we did was kind of a throwback beer this year. So we tried to do a clone of Pyramid Apricot Ale, if y'all remember that delicious, fantastic 2004, 2006 beer that we all drank way too much of. So we tried to do a little throwback to that. So I think that's kind of the idea now, is the Andrew Ritter beer every year is going to be just a throwback to that classic kind of beer that you were drinking, like when Andrew was starting to drink beer.
Well, and I got to add, who didn't have the apricot beer at Pyramid, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's the Bay Area. It's
Oh,
you
my
have
God.
to. It's illegal not to.
Yeah,
It's also it's one of those beers I drank so much of that I
Right.
can't even stand the smell of it anymore.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But again, that was one of the places that Andrew learned to love beer, right? And so it was great this year.
So
But
that beer's out now, or is it gone now? That
It's
Andrew,
pretty gone.
Okay,
Yeah,
It's
we
gone.
sold out of it, I think,
Yeah.
at this point.
But
I'm
I-
looking at your news. Yeah, that was back in August.
Back in
right,
August, yeah.
But I will tell you, every year we're going to do, and we have done for a number of years, the Andrew Ritter tribute. So look for the next one for ALS TDI coming up next year.
That's awesome. If you go right now to OaklandUnitedBeerworks.com, that's OaklandUnitedBeerworks.com, click on the news and events, and you can see the label for the Andrew Ritter tribute beer, this year's anyway. And you can click on there and learn a little bit more about it. But there's all kinds of, you can also learn more about their 2022 silver GABF medal, and more. There's all kinds of good info. You guys have a great website, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was browsing that today, and just a ton of information on there. So good stuff. All right, so tell us about the cryo.
Yeah,
beer.
so since I've been in Oakland United now since July of last year. This year, it's not last year yet. We're getting there.
Yeah.
And all of the West Coast we've done have been cryo beers, which I thought was really interesting when I started. We haven't done a single West Coast IPA that hasn't been a cryo. And like you kind of mentioned earlier, I expect, cryo, it's going to be hazy. And also another situation where when you have a cryo hop, right, you're going to get one cryo hop and then however many pounds of mosaic in it.
Of course.
Yeah, this is 100% cryo hops. This is the second one we've done along this line. We did one back in, September maybe was the other one. It came out really nice. We really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's fun to use the cryo hops. It's something that we are experimenting with more and more and trying to kind of figure out how we can keep that in our regular cycle.
Sure. It's a great product, and some of my favorite breweries who come in here, everyone's using them and experimenting with them. I mean, less hop matter.
Right.
Technically, you could potentially spend less on hops if you really dial it in.
Right, and that's kind of the balancing act that you're working on as like a business side of it is how can we actually use less of these while spending less?
Aren't they more per pound, but you use less of them? Is that the deal?
I want to say it's about, 3/4 more, so a $10 is going to end up being an $18 per pound, but you only use half of it, so you're still up a little bit on it. But because of that, we work in 11-pound increments when it comes to hops, 11s, 22s, 33s, 44s, and especially when you're dry hopping, you don't want to put 9 pounds in and just have 2 pounds sitting around.
Right,
you're going to go for that whole number. So when you're doing that with cryo hops, especially, you want to hit those kind of numbers. So so you end up putting a little bit more in than you think you're going to, when you buy.
Can I ask a favor? Because a lot of people don't know what cryo hops are. I mean, can one of you just
Absolutely.
kind of give a quick rundown?
Yeah,
of
let's
what
go
it
with
is?
Steven on that one.
You
Mine's going to be a bit old, an old description.
I want to hear your old description because it's probably my old description.
Well, the simplest way, and of course you have to be a stoner to know, is that it's keef. I mean, so it's I think it's mostly the glands, the lupulin glands, and the matter that matters most to the things we like about hops, which are the flavor and aroma. It's not about bittering components. So they've managed to strip out most of the plant material and leaving that glandular material, which you could call keef, shake. That has all the goods in it.
No, that's a great description.
My understanding of how it started, and I have a little tandem story about this, is basically, they're storing this hop matter in silos, and then once they've taken all of their citra out, now there is, there's cake on the walls, basically.
Yeah.
So they go in with liquid nitrogen, perhaps. I'm not sure where the cryo aspect of it comes from, and I think that's where it started, to actually remove those from the walls, and that's your keef, that's your shake, basically, that's coming through. And when I worked at Anchor, we discovered this on accident because we had a torpedo in Anchor. I think they still do. But when you'd load it, all the shake would just hit the sides of this torpedo. So a torpedo, we put hops in and then we move beer through it rather than actually putting the hops into the tank. So we'd have just inches and inches on top at the end because we were putting pounds and pounds and pounds of this stuff in these torpedoes. And so I kind of had it in the back of my head like, well, what are we doing with all this stuff? We should do something with it. So I started scraping it off the tank when we were done and putting it in Ziploc bags and freezing it. And then I would make casks out of it. So every now and then we would have a cask of like Liberty Ale, let's say, which is their classic pale ale. but it would be with a ton of Calypso shake, basically, that we had in the freezer. But it was just the stinkiest, most delicious smelling. And everybody who was a hophead was like, "Oh, the cask's out. Let's get the cask. Let's get going." Yeah. And our boss at the time, my boss Tom Riley, he was obsessed because he's such a hophead, and he was just like, "Oh, this is the best Liberty Ale I've ever had."
Right.
But yeah, that's my impression. I'm not sure how specifically it is done now, but it's that same concept, right?
I do wonder if it very well could have been a brewery like Anchor who phoned some of the Yakima people and were like, "Hey,
why does this taste so good?
And you ought to look into it,
right?
Because we think it's cool." You know.
No, I just think that's a wonderful story, and when I tell people that story, I remind them of the fact that hops and cannabis is part of the cannabis family, and that's one of the reasons we love what we have. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard theories from people even that they're so close. In fact, I think it was Vic at the Bistro IPA Festival, and he said to me once, he'd say this on air too. He's like, "Hey, look around. Notice how happy everybody is?" And I went, "Well, yeah, dude. It's an IPA festival. It's a bunch of 7% beers." And he goes, "No, there's other there's other festivals where there's a lot of alcohol. The happiness quotient is different." And he's like, "I think it's the relation to cannabis. I think it's the family relation."
There might be something to that, honestly.
Yeah.
'Cause you think of happy drunks, and they're usually at IPA fests. Those are the "I love you" mans, not the "I hate you" mans.
You don't see a lot lot of happy gin drunks at a gin.
No.
You do see that at the IPA festival.
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
You know,
that's very true.
Juniper's not in the same family.
No, not in the same family.
Well, tell me more about the beer. So cryo what? Is cryo a variety? Do you get like cryo Citra, or is it just
yes?
Okay,
so it's we're getting cryo. This is Citra, Mosaic, Cashmere is the combination in this one. I forget what it was in the other one, but I think it was similar. I think Chinook was the not Cashmere, Chinook was the other one, and that one I think we liked a little better. I think that's the one that we're going to go back to. Cryo Chinook is kind of incredible. Like I think
Chinook alone is incredible.
Chinook's
it's
an
one of my
overlooked
favorite
hops in this day and age, and it's just I've had. Like years ago, I had a pale ale with Chinook, and I was just like, "Oh man, I forgot what this hop can do."
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that coming back. I'm also a huge fan of Crystal hops, which is
Yeah.
on a tail dive, and I want to see what a cryo Crystal hop can do.
Yeah.
A little pale ale, maybe.
Is it all cryo, or are there regular
all
pellet
cryo?
hops?
100%.
This is 100% cryo.
Yeah,
beer.
all Whirlpool, huge Whirlpool additions, and then dry hop. So there's very little bittering in this. It's all coming from the Whirlpool,
and it still comes in pellets, right? Or it's not like a powder.
They're not a powder, no, but they're kind of. It looks like powder frozen into pellet formation.
Okay.
That's kind of what it looks like.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to, my listeners have heard this story, but whatever. We went to Firestone to brew a Pale 31 clone a few years ago, and Matt Brynelson laid out a selection of hops for us to choose, and they were named. It wasn't blind or anything, but it was like Centennial and Citra and all that, and all the way at the end of the table was Chinook. And all of us thought, like, well, whatever, we'll smell it, but it's Chinook. And we get there, every person in that room was like, holy shit, Chinook.
Remember this?
That's the one. We don't care what else you put in, but make sure it has this. So good. And I was saying to him, no one's had an answer to this, I don't know if it's gotten better over the years, or we just didn't know it was so good. I really can't remember.
I think we did know it was so good, but I think that because, back in the day, we used it, for bitterness, because it was such a high alpha.
Yeah.
And it just became, I think modern brewers looked at it and said, well, what would this look like here?
Yeah.
And then we started, Chinook's great. How many of the classic C-hop pale ales from back in the day were Chinook? Probably most of them, if not all of them.
Right.
But yeah, then it just kind of disappeared, Centennial does that.
Of all of those C-hops, to me, Chinook, even though it's an old one, is like the newest school.
Right.
Like it has the melon and citrus, like more of all of that
Right.
we now like in our Citra and Mosaic and everything else. Like it was always there in Chinook.
Well, it has that just all American quality to it. It tastes like American fruits. It doesn't have that kind of, it's got a little bit of the orchard, but it's mostly just that mandarin orange. It's just crazy with the orange peel.
So good. So you're saying that so you get it like in a box that would be 3 varieties, which in this case was Citra, Mosaic, Chinook. Is that what you said?
Yeah. It's the 3 different ones. We're getting it just like we would get normal hops. They just
so it's not a blend.
Cryo.
Okay.
No, it's not a blend. It's not like a Falconer's Flight kind of situation.
Yeah. Okay.
CTZ.
Got it. Oh, it's a great beer.
Thank you.
All right. Let's take another break because we've got more to get to. We at least have a Baltic Porter to try.
Yes, we do.
And I think there's one more beer on draft that we didn't try too. So maybe we'll try to sneak 2 beers into our final segment. We're hanging out here with Oakland United Beerworks, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We are still hanging out with Oakland United Beerworks. Got a couple more beers in our glass that I took a little sneak taste of at the break. They're delicious. Also, speaking of delicious, a brand new beer out from the 21st Amendment, our good friends at 21st Amendment. Are You Hoppy Like Me? Actually made by Sully, made by Sean O'Sullivan, who's back brewing at the San Francisco Brew House. And their limited release, Made in the Bay, Are You Hoppy Like Me, is an, here we go. Are you ready for it? It's a Imperial Rice Ale. No, Imperial Rice IPA, which is still ale. Imperial Rice IPA. It's got 2-row pale malt, flake rice, Munich malt, hopped with Magnum and Centennial in the kettle, dry hopped with, and I don't know this one, Talus. Talus and Comet is in the dry hop. It's a delicious beer. I've had one myself. You can pick it up at the San Leandro Tap Room or the San Francisco Tap Room. Like I said, made by Sully. He's back in there doing good things. You can also order it from 21st-amendment.com, and they'll ship to you anywhere in California. So for those of you California listeners, even if you're not in the Bay, you can still get this wonderful beer. Are You Hoppy Like Me? Check it out. Also, if you're in the Bay and you want to go into one of their tap rooms, I'm pretty sure right now that if you order a Fireside Chat, which is their winter seasonal, you get a free Fireside Chat glass to take home with you. So pretty cool stuff from our friends over at 21st Amendment. Thanks, Sully. Thanks for all your support over the years and for the good beer. Okay, so 2 beers left in our lineup here, and one of them I just poured off of our draft. I don't often go for our nitro draft. Not always my favorite style. This one is a nitro stout, though, right? And it's delicious.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it really is. I'm not blowing smoke at all.
Why don't you go for the nitro tap? I'm curious.
Well, I find them to often either not be enough like Guinness, which to me is just a staple. I'm sorry to say it. I know it's a mass-produced, but it's a wonderful, wonderful beer.
It's a great beer.
Or they're so far in the other direction. Mm-hmm. I really don't like sweet beers. And so to find a beer, again, like your Schwartz beer, that manages to make it into the middle there with all the right qualities, I just find it doesn't happen a lot. I do like, and we'll have like, I like a little Old Rasputin. I like Old Number 38 a little better.
I love Old Number 38.
So that beer. So I'm not saying I don't, but if I'm going to go for a beer, I'm usually going, it's a lager or a pale ale, right? So, but I'll be going back for this beer for sure. So tell us about this one.
I love that answer because we just had a long conversation about the nitro because it's kind of one of those situations, you know, who's drinking nitro in this day and age and what kind of nitro beers are they drinking in this day and age? So this is going to become an ultra seasonal, our nitros, and this is just a classic extra stout.
That's how it should be to me.
And that's how it should be to me, and I think that's how, you know, we kind of think of them. Mm-hmm. You know, we could put, you know, dates and maple syrup and whatever else. We could. There's nothing stopping us.
Don't give Chris ideas.
But, I mean, you know, when it comes down to it, when I sit and I drink a nitro beer, what do I want to drink? I want to drink an Old Number 38. I want to drink an Old Rasputin. I want to drink anything with old in it, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Old Guinness.
Well, and look, those beers, those experimental beers, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. And there's great. An audience for them. Mm-hmm. And this is where, and I don't think I'm a beer snob. I don't even think I'm a beer purist. I think I'm a creature of habit. Mm-hmm. And so I like experimenting a little bit with about a half a pint. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to go right back to my pale ale or IPA or whatever. I'm never really going to stay so far over there. I do enjoy giving a little sip of some of these crazy beers. But the rest of the time, I want that's in our glass right now.
And, you know, we're a production brewery, but we also have a tap room. And our tap room is very much kind of the lifeblood of what we think we should be making. And we look at those people. One of the cool things about our tap room is that we were talking earlier about how different Jack London Square is becoming. And one of the things I think is really cool is we have this horseshoe-shaped bar where the bartender is kind of holding court over everybody. And the people who come into our bar are regulars for the most part. You know, and we have people who come upstairs and they sit at our tables, or outside we have fire pits and stuff like that. But the people who sit at the bar, you can just kind of watch and you can see creatures of habit. What are they drinking? And if there's a nitro on, they want a nitro stout. They want something simple. We've talked about maybe we put the black lager into a nitro. Maybe that would be interesting, something to do.
Sure.
But yeah, so we really like this beer. This is our brewmaster's little secret recipe. This is his kind of his baby that he actually formulated with his wife.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's a nice little, we're a family affair here at Oakland United. So it's nice to bring them in. Even
if you can't give the recipe, this one is not just black patent, right? There's got to be some kind of chocolate malt in there.
There's just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's so flavorful and not just black patent to me,
Right, and it's dried out. I when I first had it, I immediately asked him about rye, and I asked him about 1,000 different adjuncts, and he was just like, no, just a little chocolate.
You're right. Okay,
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair enough.
Yeah, this is phenomenal beer, and even if we just have it once a year, it's one of those things you can look forward to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this time of year, this is a great beer. And I wish, so many people don't understand. We wish we could put this in cans and we could, have it all year round. It just doesn't work, right? So you got to come into the brewery, or you got to come to a place like this, Hop Grenade, hang out with your friends, and enjoy this beer.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect time for doing it, right?
I love that about seasonals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing I tend to not like about nitro beers is that they can taste flat and thin to me. Now, this one is not more carbonated than your average nitro beer.
No.
But I think when a beer has enough body, it makes up for that flat character. Because it jumps off your palate more when I'm like this chocolate that I'm picking up. Instead of laying flat on my palate like an undercarbonated beer, it still jumps off my palate. And that I really like.
I mean, I had a sip of it 30 seconds ago, and I'm still tasting it. It's still coating. It's still just right there on my tongue.
Agree with that.
I'm still getting it.
Which is the exact opposite of a thin, flat beer.
Right. Yeah.
Or something too sweet. That doesn't jump off your palate. It sits right down on it.
Right.
Yeah.
But that way it weighs it down.
Yeah.
There's silence as we all drink.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. It's the only radio silence I allow in this studio. It's just a little bit of drinking. Okay. And then we have a Baltic Porter in our glass. So you guys are really going all over the place with the styles too.
Yeah, we lean hard in the paint with the dark beers.
Okay.
Which I love. And the Baltic Porter, the reason that we highlighted it is, again, we were talking about kind of the creatures of habit that we see in the tap room, and the Baltic Porter just took off in our tap room. We see when we come in on Monday, we can see what people drank over the weekend. And the first weekend that we did this Sleeping Giants car?
Is that what it's called?
Sleeping Car Giants is what
Sleeping
it's called.
Car Giants.
Chris will give the history of that name here in a second. But we found 2 half barrels over the weekend. People were just drinking this beer.
Wow.
And I sat at the bar that next week, and everyone come in, and, you'd hear the bartender, oh, what would you like to drink? Oh, what do you have in this? Blah, blah, blah. And, they would look and they would see that and they would go, Baltic Porter, let me try that. And then all of a sudden they're on glass 2.
Right.
And, I mean, for
what's the ABV?
9% beer, there's that kind of...
Again, there's that happiness quotient that arises. Yeah.
But we also have we have the Amtrak nearby, so we're kind of a pit stop for the Amtrak. A lot of people will pop in, have their quickie, and then get on the train to get up to Sacramento or wherever they're going. And the Sleeping Car Giants, you'll see people, they'll grab one and be like, all right, I'm getting a 4-pack of this for the train. So it's just really cool.
It's a good train ride.
It's a good train ride.
Which, a little known secret, you can drink beer on the Amtrak.
So
take your own beer with you.
You're allowed, yeah. I've brought growlers before.
Yeah. Well, this is another tribute to Oakland. Oakland has a lot to be proud of, and one of the major contributions that Oakland has made is to the civil rights movement. And the Pullman Porters were a group, it was an all-black union that was started, and these were the guys who basically would work on the trains that would cross the country, and their West Coast office was in Oakland, and it was a major, hub for basically African Americans coming to Oakland, African Americans getting really good jobs that were allowed them to kind of help take care of their families and educate kids and move on. And Oakland played a major role in providing the place that the union was formed and was able to operate out of. So Oakland's got a huge, wonderful history that I think is sometimes overlooked. we go to San Francisco and you think of all the stuff that happened there.
Sure.
Oakland has just got so much going for it, and this is just a tribute to really the brave men who started and the families who supported them that started the Pullman Porters and the union that supported them, that allowed them to ultimately organize and then become ultimately one of the beginning points for the civil rights movement.
Amazing.
So we're very proud of it, and we're very proud of Oakland for having done that.
That's a great tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a good beer at that. And so this one, and my palate's not that great, to be honest with you, so I probably have it exactly the opposite. But this one, I'm not going to go calling out chocolate. This one is more like dark fruit. Maybe some vanilla, but it's funny because the first couple sips were pretty similar to the Nitro Stout, but then it started to stand out with less chocolate and more kind of a dark fruit.
Yeah, this is definitely leaning towards the dark fruit. It's definitely leaning towards a lot more of what the lager yeast does to the caramel malts.
Okay.
And it's an interesting beer because it's super smooth for what is it 9%? Is that what
It's 9%.
we decided on? Yeah.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you.
It sneaks up on you, and it's got that winter warmer quality without gaining that fusel. You're drinking booze,
Right? None of that is there,
Right?
Which is why it's a sleeper like that,
Right?
Yeah, and that can be a real turnoff. And unless you're really going for a barrel aged something, then a little bit of that spirit is fine. But I don't think so in a Baltic Porter. I don't
think so either. I think the smoother, the better.
Yeah. But that's why it does get dangerous that way. What size glass do you serve it in? Just out of curiosity.
It's our 10-ounce glass.
Okay, that's what we would do here.
Yeah.
We've got an 8 and a 12, and we would pour 10 ounces in a 12-ounce glass.
Although I did see we just did a quad.
Okay.
And I did see one of our taproom people pouring it into a 16-ounce glass, which I thought was hilarious.
I've made that mistake.
What
before.
you doing there?
Well, we have an Imperial Stout, iron and steel, and I pour in the tap room, and someone forgot to tell me that we're not supposed to pour that in the 16-ounce glasses. So there were a number of people who got a good time.
Yeah.
Iron and steel. That's very, very Pittsburgh of us. Where did the iron and steel come from?
It actually it's got an Oakland connection.
Oakland connection to Pittsburgh?
No, an Oakland connection to the ironwork area around Jack London Square. Mm-hmm. And there was a back in the 1800s a huge ironworks. You still see it in Oakland, and so we named it after that.
Nice. Well, you guys are brewing some fantastic beer.
Oh, thank you.
And I haven't been to your location, so I need to change that quickly and come see you guys in Jack. I won't just wait for baseball to do it. That's going to be years.
You better hurry. God knows what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. I even thought about opening a hop grenade down there.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, I can't wait till the ballpark. I can't ride that out, and then I can't afford it when there's a ballpark. So I'm just going to come drink with you guys.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
Well, it's popping up like wildfire over there.
It really is.
We have more coming in.
And what's you mentioned it earlier, the gluten-free one, Buck
Wild.
They just won an award, didn't they?
They did.
Do you remember what that was for?
I don't remember what
But was it for a specifically gluten-free category?
It was.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it flashed by me on my screen when I was broadcasting, and I thought maybe they won a normal category, which would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing, yeah.
Right? I mean, no offense, but it would have been amazing.
It would have been incredible if it were true.
It would have driven away all the celiac.
It's just gone.
I tell you what, we're really proud of Oakland, and Oakland did really well just, in the competitions.
Area,
Look at Ghost Town.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Who cannot admire those guys, right?
Yeah. Ghost Town, original pattern. I spend a lot of time drinking with those guys, so I need to change that up a little bit and come drink with you guys.
Please do. Well, I want to make one mention here of Kristen Carney. Kristen Carney is kind of the person who has really done a lot of the operations and taken this brewery, I think, to the next level.
Okay.
And she is the one who firmly believes in this inclusiveness that is Oakland. And so when I talk to you about Sleeping Car, when I talk to you about Night Heron, those things which are specific to Oakland, she is a kid. Well, she's not a kid. But when you're 66, everybody's a kid. But she's a person who
you don't look a day over 65.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. She is someone who grew up in Oakland, who loves Oakland, who has made Oakland the center of what we do. Mm-hmm. And so when you see and you hear about these things that are Oakland-centric, God bless Kristen for recognizing the uniqueness that Oakland is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I know that you guys have a small team. I've known Mo for years now, and I know you guys have a small team there, but you have a really passionate team.
We do.
And you all seem to just really have bought into the idea behind the brewery. And that goes a long way. The breweries are falling left and right, and I think part of that is either getting into the business for the wrong reason, not paying attention enough to the details, whether that be in the beer or the story. And you guys, you're not following those pitfalls. So good job on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you really have something to be proud of. It's a wonderful story that you have.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that we got to come and talk about that. And then, damn, Mo, the beer's real good.
Yeah, I would only add to.
Here, you can grab the.
Come on, Mo, you gotta get on here.
Turn that red light on over there. So Mo is our Contra Costa County rep. You're gonna have to pull that mic all the way close to you.
I want to add.
Yes, Contra Costa and Eastern Alameda County.
And yeah, so we see quite a lot of Mo out here, always singing the praises of this beer. She is a wonderful advocate of Oakland United. And I'm really glad that you brought them in here today, Mo.
Of course. I mean, I've always respected what you guys are doing, and I've listened to y'all for years and, known you for years and come into the Hop Grenade for years, all those things.
Yeah.
And, I joined up with Oakland United a couple of years ago, not blindly. I mean, I had known of them for many, many years and collaborated with them, working with other breweries in the past and things like that. Met Chris years and years ago, actually, and joining up with them has been such an amazing thing for me. And I truly believe this is my first sales job. So I've been in the beer industry for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
But I've never done sales.
Okay.
And I was always kind of afraid of that side of things.
Sure.
But what I have found makes it easy is that I believe in the company, I believe in the people that run the company, and I believe in the product. And I think that if all three of those things were not true, I couldn't do my job.
Sure.
And so it actually is such a blessing that this connection happened. And it was a little bit of a COVID fallout situation that made it all come together.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Hey, see, even good things come out of shit things like that. It just happens
Absolutely.
sometimes. You know what I mean?
Silver linings, right?
Yeah, and Mo, we love you. We really do.
Right back at you.
It does seem like a cool place to work. So if either of my businesses fail, I might be looking for a job.
Come drink with us and have this business prosper. That's all I can say.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll get the best of both worlds.
I love it. Okay, well, you can go to, let me get it right, OaklandUnitedBeerworks.com. Go to OaklandUnitedBeerworks.com. You can find out about any events that they have coming on. You can find out about beer releases. There's even a beer notes tab where you can read about the beers that we talked about today. I didn't even cheat. All of my flavor descriptions were off of my palate today.
Well,
I could have. I only didn't cheat because I didn't see the beer notes tab till just now. I wish
Chocolate malt.
I would have done better. I would have done so much better.
You did all right.
Okay, perfect. OaklandUnitedBeerworks.com. Check it out and go see them in Jack London Square. You can get the address. I'll be going there also. So thank you again, folks, for hanging out with us.
It's our pleasure. And I want to say all of us have been following you for years. And it is such a pleasure to be here. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that very much. It's always nice to hear.
And I want to add personally, as Andrew's father, thank you for letting me tell his story.
Oh, heck yeah.
And folks, go out, do what you can to defeat this horrible disease that is unfortunately affecting a lot of really, really cool people across the world.
Yeah.
And ALS for ALS is one of the ways to do it. And ALS TDI is one of those places you should support. And like Andrew did, just live and really enjoy your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank
Drink
you
beer,
again.
slay
One more
dragons.
thing,
Yeah, drink beer, slay dragon.
Slay dragon.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to say it any better. All right. We're going to get out of here for now, and thanks again to Oakland United for being here. Andrew's story is inspirational, and I'm glad that it is carrying on in this brewery and in so many other ways too. I, for one, will be attending more Ales for ALS events, and just remember what I said too. It really can happen to anyone, anywhere, and so it's been going on for far too long. Let's find a cure for that. All right. Hey, thanks so much to our sponsors, of course, More Beer, for bringing you this program. Thanks to the 21st Amendment. Thanks to Williams Brewing. Thanks to Beersmith Brewing Software. You can go to beersmith.com and download your free 21-day trial of the Beersmith Brewing Software. So you don't have to take my word for it. It's great stuff, but you can just go find out for yourself. And then be on the lookout for the California Craft Beer Summit is back in Sacramento in 2023, and you're going to hear more from about that from me here on this show. I'm excited about it. It's a great event. All right, folks, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves and your beer. The Session is a production of the Brewing Network and brought to you by More Beer. Check them out at morebeer.com. Find more content and live video of this show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brewing Network. For sponsorship opportunities and information, please reach out to advertising@thebrewingnetwork.com. To reach our hosts, contact feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com.